Hello, encouragers. I'm Rebecca Scott, wife, mother of 4, author, and owner and designer of Rebecca Scott Designs. I'm here to encourage you, to make you feel that I can do this spirit each and every day of our awesome journeys to fulfill our many important roles. I believe we are fully equipped to execute, and I will provide as much knowledge, practices, and systems as I can to help you understand just what I know you can do. Execute. We got this. Hello, encouragers. Today we have a really fun podcast that I was kind of geeking out over when I had 4 days to spend with my awesome vendor friends. We call them artisan friends, all of the above. And so I was really excited that this gal fit the profile so well of what I was looking for. And it was with me all along. I guess I just didn't ask enough detailed questions, but I did this time, and I can't wait to share her with you, encouragers. I have on the show with me today, Jessica. I guess I never call you by your last name, so I'm going to stick with that. This is Jessica Kelm, I believe. And she is from Minnesota and has an awesome business called Just Sew Baby, SEW, and sells the most adorable baby products. And if you're familiar at all with my other company, Rebecca Scott Designs, I've had her on live to show her awesome baby seat covers, and Pixon owns a lot of her bows. Sarah owns a lot of her stuff with all of her children as well. And so it's just a pleasure to have her on today. And we're not necessarily going to be talking about sewing, but we're actually going to be talking about what's probably my weakest system of my 4 systems that I talk about, but an important one. And this gal is going to help me make it one of my strong systems. So it is the food system. So if you guys will welcome Jessica. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks, Becca, for having me.
Yes. Okay. Tell me about your family and that sort of thing.
Okay. So I am a mom of 3 kiddos. I have 2 boys and a girl. My oldest son, Owen, is 15. My middle son is Mason, and he is 13. And Lauren, my youngest, is 9. She will be 10 actually in less than a week.
Oh, gosh. That doesn't seem possible because I remember when she was just 4 when we were at shows together.
Right? Or just a baby, right? When we first met, really.
Tell me about what that was again, because I remember you telling me this briefly one time, and I was like, what?
Yes. So how I originally met you, Becca, was Lauren actually was in the front pouch, and I was scoping out the show before I became a vendor at Canterbury in Shakopee. And I had been admiring you for several times that I had been going to the show. And I don't know what enticed me to stop this time, maybe because you're just so open to wanting to start a conversation. I don't know. You didn't seem very intimidating. So
good.
I was like, I'm going to just ask her. And so I just struck up a conversation and told you what I did and asked you what I thought of, do you think I should just make the plunge and do this big show? And because it seemed like such an intimidating show to me. Mm-hmm. And you encouraged me to do it, and I did it. And I was accepted the first time I had applied, and I had done the show a couple years, and I was actually upstairs in the back 40. And then Canterbury changed up their, buildings. They used to have long tents, and once they remodeled and got rid of one of their tents, they built this expo center, and then we became vendor booth neighbors. So, yes. And the rest is history. I think we've just become such good mom friends over the years too, along with being, vendor friends.
Yeah, it's the best scenario ever, because when you get to be next to vendors that, for one, are in your same stage of life, raising kids, trying to run a business, trying to help your husband run their businesses or their jobs, we get to talk shop for 4 days. And we get to talk shop and family, so to be like, okay, what's working for you and what's not. And then also exchange goals. And that's always really fun too. We have Mary's Marketplace, one of our jeweler friends in there, and we have Lynn Sancelli with Painted Things. So you really get close with your artisan friends and know what's working and what's not working, and exchange woes and exchange successes. So it's like a match made in heaven, I think.
Yes, for sure. And we're all our businesses are so different. And so I feel like we all come at it from different angles, which can be good for other, just because they don't aren't sewers doesn't mean they can't look at it with a fresh perspective for us.
Yes.
And
yes.
I appreciate that we all have that camaraderie and not competition.
Yes.
I see all you ladies as family and not, as, yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. There's plenty to go around.
Right.
Yes,
for sure.
Yes. And encouragers, I think I single-handedly twisted Jessica. I pretty much shamed her into getting an industrial sewing machine after I was like, Jessica, for the love of God, you will sew so much faster if you get one. And I don't mean that in vain, everybody. I mean that in literally glorify God by getting a faster machine.
Oh my gosh. That was like the best thing that you ever shoved me to do, because I bought like a used one for $200, and then I ended up getting gifted a nicer one by an organization that I make costumes for in the wintertime. And so it was just such a blessing. And then I saved up and took the plunge and bought a commercial or industrial serger as well. And I'm thinking, why did I not do this sooner? Why did I not listen to Becca sooner?
Oh gosh, no worries. But that's also one of those things I would encourage the encouragers, know the women, just know the people in your industries, because it would be intimidating for you to go to a sewing shop, meet a man, meet a woman who's selling you a really expensive heavy metal machine that needs to sell it because it's on their floor. Or if you went to somebody who's currently using it and can say, this part stinks about it and this part rocks about it. So I could tell you, like, yeah, you're going to invest a lot, but you'll pay it off in no time, or stay away from this. Like, know your people. Reach out. Yeah. It's just the same thing that you were brave enough to say, this gal looks approachable. I'm going to go ahead and ask her. And that, like, it just comes back to you 100-fold of, like, I got a friendship out of it just by being approachable and telling the truth about, the booth is great. The first 2 years I didn't break even, but now I am. Just being boldly honest about what it takes.
True that.
Yes. So you guys, Jessica, aside from being an awesome seamstress and a really good friend of mine, is really good mom. You've been homeschooled in different years in there, and she has got the food system down to a science. And the part I like about it is Jessica and her husband are also Dave Ramsey followers, so they watch their dollars smartly, but they're great active moms as well, or active parents as well. They're not sitting at home and doing nothing, so they're running to different things, different events, music, sports, all of that, and she's still cooking for her family on a budget. And she has got freezer meals down to an awesome science. And she was showing me pictures on her phone of what her freezer looks like. You guys are going to fall over in love with what her freezer looks like. And I'm hoping we can provide that for you guys. So this one is really going to be fun after you listen to the podcast. Make sure to go to our website, theencouragerpodcast.com, and we will have the recipes, her top 5 to 7 recipes that Jessica is going to share with us today. And she's going to also tell us how to get started. So tell us not exactly, but how did you start getting into the freezer meal, what do I want to say, phase movement? Like, how did it become like you were like, I'm going to have to do freezer meals?
Yeah. So honestly, I just started experimenting after feeling like overwhelming to try to put a decent home cooked, and I kind of say that in quotation marks, meal on the table every night while running around, running a business, managing 3 kids, active, crazy schedules. My husband kind of works a crazy work schedule too. And I knew there had to be a better way to just making it easier and not making a giant mess every night. That was another part of my
journey.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I don't want to make a mess.
Yes. So that also, that I also had to clean up, like when the kids were young at the time, so they couldn't help very much. And just, you're constantly running from one thing to the next, right?
Yeah.
So I knew there had to have been an easier or better way. So first, I just had started by picking a few of the recipes I already knew my family loved. They were family favorites. And then I picked a few that I thought could be frozen out of those few, meals that I already knew my family loved, or that would taste the same after being frozen, right? Because it also has to taste good too.
Yes.
I'm lucky enough to not have too picky of eaters, but some things, they just taste different or have a different texture after they've been frozen. So then I decided what I did was then I doubled the recipe So then I would make it and have it for dinner, and then I would freeze the other batch to have at a later time. And then I figured one mess, but 2 meals, right? What a win.
Win-win.
And then, right. So then after experimenting with the meals that we already loved, figuring out they were good after being frozen, I started finding new recipes in our school cookbook and on Pinterest. Were kind of where I started, looking after venturing from our family favorites, right? And then once I had a half a dozen or so that I made just single batches. So once I found a new recipe, I would make sure I could get a thumbs up from everyone before I actually batch cooked them or made them in multiple so I could freeze them.
Okay.
And then I also tried to see what stuff could be cooked and frozen and what stuff shouldn't be cooked or frozen, if that makes sense.
Okay. Break that down. Like, don't cook it first and then freeze it?
Yes. Or, is it okay to cook it first and then refreeze it after it's been cooked?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Just like the consistency or the texture sometimes changes on foods.
Yes, it does.
And then,
see, this is why I'm having her on. I'm like, okay, taking notes. Got it.
And then once I did that, I started by freezing like one meal a month. Like usually on Sundays after church, we normally don't have a ton of activities on Sundays, or we try to limit them as much as we can. So I would just take one recipe on a Sunday and I would make 3 or 4 batches of it. So then that's what we would eat on Sunday for our dinner. And then I would have 3 freezer meals for later.
Okay.
And then once I kind of found a good rhythm, I did, 1 meal a week, meaning that when I made a meal, I quadrupled the batch. So I had 1 meal for that night and then 3 for in the freezer later. So then if you did that once a week for 4 weeks, you'd have 12 freezer meals for later.
Did everybody's jaws just drop like, yes, that would be awesome? Okay. Awesome.
You can start simple. I have gotten much more complicated than that, but
But mostly, my next question, which you already answered, is what is your method? So you're saying once a week you quadruple a recipe so that at any month, you've got at least 12 freezer meals waiting.
Right. And then, because then too, it's not so overwhelming. You're only buying the ingredients and having to focus on one recipe a week.
Okay, true.
But you're making enough to make 4. So then you're making the mess for dinner that night, which you already would anyway. Yep. And then you're also then making 3 extra meals. So yes, it might take you a little longer, but you are then making 4 meals instead of just the 1.
Yep.
And 1 mess.
I love it.
Which I love.
Especially the 1 mess part. I love this. So how would you encourage us to get started? You've talked about a little bit some of your sources. First of all, where are most of your sources? You mentioned the school cookbook and Pinterest. Is that still?
Yes. Okay. I feel like church cookbooks, school cookbooks, or if you have already family favorite recipes, that's exactly where I would start. Stuff that your family already loves.
Okay. That's what we should get started with, stuff we know we already love. And what are some of the supplies we should have?
So this is the other part of my process is I use all disposable tinfoil pans.
Nice.
So I use them in a few different sizes, but it's mostly the size difference is the depth of the pan. So I typically try to use like a 9x11 ish or 9x14 cake style pan. And some of the recipes call for the taller cake pan. Some I can get away with the one where it's like half the depth of a cake pan. So it's maybe an inch tall instead of 2 inches tall. But I buy all of that stuff at the dollar store. So if you have a dollar store near you, I buy all of my disposable pans at the dollar store.
Okay.
Then heavy duty tin foil for the top when you freeze it.
Okay.
And I just use the Target brand, a regular like point Sharpie. So it's actually called the fine point, but it's the thicker fine point. It's not the ultra fine point. And I use specifically the Sharpie brand because the off brands don't stay on the pans.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I love there's so much details about the pen.
and you label the pan before you put the food in, because otherwise it will, like, the food changes the temperature of the pan and then you cannot write on it. So
ooh, good to know, encouragers. Okay, got it. Okay.
And I always put it on the one end. So on, if it's a 9x14 pan, I put it on the 9-inch side because that's how I face all of my meals. So I can see it and I don't have to dig in my freezer.
Yep. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then sometimes I will freeze soups or crock-pot meals. And those I actually put in just freezer bags from Target. When you're doing soups, you kind of have to double the bag, usually just so that I don't want it to leak in my freezer. So, and then the other thing I use or utilize when I'm doing something in a Ziploc bag, or sometimes if it's a meal where there's more liquid in the pan, I actually freeze it on a cookie sheet first before I stack them. So then it becomes frozen and then you can stack them easier. If that makes sense.
Yes.
So,
okay.
For instance, like my French dip recipe,
okay.
I will freeze that on a cookie sheet. I have like a big Costco, like church cookie sheet is what I feel like they're called, like the big ones that they make the bars on. And then I can put 2 pans in there and freeze them flat and level before I actually stack them.
Okay, then I was going to say, you mean you're pouring the juice in it and then you're freezing the juice? I was making it way too difficult. You just mean you put them in the sack first, but freeze them on the cookie sheet so it flattens out.
Yes, so it's easier to store. Sorry, yes.
Oh my gosh, you're amazing.
So then they can be stacked, frozen.
Okay, got it. And we are going to share that recipe here, encouragers. Okay, and then, so now we got some of the supplies. What about the freezer space?
So it doesn't have to be much to start with. If you're a family of 3, you're probably going to only use a 9x9 cake pan size versus the 9x14. So you're going to probably, maybe out of a general recipe that feeds, a family of 5, you could probably actually get 2 meals out of that instead of only 1 like I can. So you only start small and just do 1 at a time. And you could probably just use a regular freezer on an upright, refrigerator that has the old or the, traditional style freezer on the top, right?
Okay.
Or the drawer freezer on the bottom. But if you think of it that way, even if you're only doing 4 at a time, that's 1 meal a week for a month that you don't have to prepare.
Yes, it's so good. It's so good. Now, because you have been at this and you're superb at it, you personally, and that's the picture that we'll post, have an upright freezer. Is that what they call them? Or fridge freezer? Or what do they call them?
Yes. So we have in our kitchen, actually, we remodeled it 5 years ago. And part of that remodel, I said, I don't want an upright or a chest freezer in the basement that I have to constantly go up and down to find what's in there. I want to have it right in our kitchen where we could utilize the space. We have it kind of looks like a commercial style, what you'd see like in a restaurant or something, where one whole tall thing is a fridge and then one whole side is a freezer. And they're actually 2 separate units, but they are just positioned together. So it looks like one big fridge and freezer, if that makes sense.
Wow.
So
you don't have to run up and down the stairs to the freezer.
Which we did buy frugally at the Appliance Smart place, where it's a scratch and dent place.
Nice. Okay. Oh, I love it. So we inherited one of those when we moved into Grandma's house that we remodeled. He actually had a fridge. We call it the fridge freezer. And I was like, I wonder if we're ever going to use that. We totally do. Like a family of 6, hello, yes,
Right?
we totally use it. But mine doesn't look near as cool as Jessica's, but I'm working on it. Right now it's just full of pork and beef. But I'm like, when I get my hands on this and break this down for my own family, I can't wait to make it look like Jessica's.
Yes.
So cool.
Well, the key thing too, the dollar store, like there's little bins and stuff. Like I store a lot of stuff in my fridge and my freezer in like those little bins.
Okay.
And it helps kind of corral like items, right? Or that are not easily storable. That kind
Give
of
an example of some of those, like your frozen berries or?
Well, those all go in the door because they have kind of like that weird rack on the door. But for instance, in the freezer, we do have one tub that is for breakfast items. So I talk about one of my things that we freeze are waffles and pancakes. So those go in one bin. And then all of our ice cream treats go in another bin. So
I love it.
I don't like boxes. And so when I get home from the store, I take everything out of the boxes and put it in more easy, accessible containers.
Okay.
Right. So like,
yes, encouragers, listen to this. Okay. Remember when I talk about your super skill, and your super skill is something where joy, compulsion, and skill set coincide, where they just come together. Mine is mass production. Like I don't ever do one thing without thinking how I can maximize it. I don't make one 9x13. I make two 9x13s is how I run my whole business with the purses. When Jessica said, I don't like boxes, and then her voice went down a little bit because she was geeking out over why she gets rid of the box so that she's got this basket. That is the compulsion part of your super skill. So I'd be willing to bet Jessica's compulsion is definitely maximizing something. And it is, obviously, she's using it in her sewing as well. But that's for sure your compulsion is like your need to organize it and compartmentalize it to make it easy, accessible, and everything. So you'll notice it in your guys' voice when you're like, I don't know what my compulsion is. It's when you are afraid to admit or embarrassed to admit how geeky you get about it. That's what just happened to Jessica.
I totally geek out about that. Yes.
Oh gosh, I love it. I just love to point that out because, sometimes you're like, I don't know. I know what my skill is and I know where I find joy, but I don't know what my compulsion is. Well, Jessica just exposed hers.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Oh my gosh. Thanks for.
On the fridge side of it, like I have 3 bins that sit on the top shelf. One is a dairy bin, one is a veggie bin, and one is a fruit bin. And because, fruit comes in all those weird bags and the veggies come all, single. And so it's just a way to corral those things and have them easily accessible and they don't get lost in the back of the fridge or freezer. So.
Yes. Now, are you talking frozen vegetables and frozen fruit or fridge side? So it's just like fresh broccoli, not fresh.
Yeah. Okay. So fresh stuff that needs to be kept in the fridge. Yep.
And so do you not use your crisper drawers, or your refrigerator doesn't have the crisper drawers?
Well, it does, but I use the crisper drawers for yogurt and cottage cheese, so it's easily accessible for my kids. And then I use the other side for tortillas and shredded cheese.
I love it.
So that they can make like quesadillas on their own or something like that. So.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. So good. I love this. I'm going to be so much better at my food system this year, you guys. I'm so excited. Okay. Now share, let's see, we talked about, where are your favorite shopping sites? Meaning Sam's Club, Costco, where do you like to buy your stuff in bulk the most?
Yes. Well, I am kind of a split shopper between Sam's and Costco. I actually have a membership at both because each one doesn't always have everything I need. And so it just will depend. Like I buy all of my meat at Costco. So any of my hamburger, beef, chicken, I buy all that at Costco. I just feel like I'm getting a better quality there than we've ever tried at Sam's. But now Sam's has French bread and mini hoagie buns. And Costco does not have that. They have baguette, which is great, but it doesn't help me for a couple of the recipes that I use for that. So I do shop at both. Mostly I get most of my bulk stuff from Costco. And then I do supplement at Target and sometimes Aldi if you have an Aldi by you.
Okay.
So, you know, as you mentioned before, we are Dave Ramseyers. So early on, I mean, we were buying the most going through the most frugal recipes we could find. You know, there was no meat 3 days a week, which drove my husband crazy. But that was just what we did to stay on our budget. Now we're on baby steps 4, 5, and 6, so we can be a little bit more plump with our food budget, I guess. Plus having
you can have hamburger tonight, honey.
Yes. So I do try to sneak a meatless meal in every once in a while, just because it is good for your budget to not do a meat meal. And the meal that I do that with, the kids don't even notice, and neither does my husband. So it's a super hearty meal. It's actually one of the ones I shared with you guys. It's my no boil and stuffed manicotti, and that's one of my big hit recipes that I found off of Pinterest. So,
oh, I love it. Okay, so now the part that we will all like as well is, what is your top 5 to 7 favorite recipes? And then describe to us a little bit about what it looks as what containers you use for this in particular recipe, and then how it freezes.
Yeah. Okay. So one of my big ones is, because it's such an easy meal to prepare on a busy night, is taco meat. So I buy hamburger in bulk from Costco. I never, ever buy hamburger in the single pound packages. When I go to Costco, I'm buying 2 of their big packages. And what I do, this might sound really ridiculous, but I actually brown all of the hamburger before I even put it away. So like it gets browned all at one time. So it may take me a couple hours to do it, but I'm doing it usually when I'm putting the rest of the pantry items away or the dishes, right? And then I separate it into freezer bags, the quart size freezer bags, and I freeze it in 1 pound increments. So like if I'm doing 2 packs of meat, I will take 1 pack and freeze it just as plain hamburger in 1 pound Ziploc bags. And then the other package I will actually make into taco meat, and I use Rebecca's taco seasoning, homemade taco seasoning recipe.
Saves so much money.
And so then I do that, and then I freeze that in 1 pound increments. So then if it's, busy night, all I have to do is remember in the morning, because I learned this from Rebecca, pick your meal in the morning.
Yep.
So you don't have to take up the brain space for it later.
Right.
And I throw the Ziploc bag, sit it on my stove, and by lunchtime, usually it's thawed out. So then I just put it back in the fridge so it stays fine. And then that way I'm just heating up the meat. I'm not having to fry the meat and then have to prepare it with the seasoning. That's all I'm doing is heating up the meat. And then we always have taco fixings on hand. We always have cheese, tortillas, we always have that on hand. So,
I think what I would say too is, like, the reason I like this is kind of like taking my food system to just one deeper level. So I have a food system, and the reason I joke that it's the weakest is because, like, I plan every morning at 7:30 what the lunch is, the snack is, and the supper is, because breakfast has already happened. But that's it. And I would like to be able to take it one level deeper with Jessica's method of having freezer meals, so I didn't have to decide at 7:30, like, okay, start from scratch, get the hamburger out, which I would have done anyways, and put in the sink. But here it's like Jessica said, it's all done. Like, it's literally put it in the sink. You won't even have to fry it later. You just take out the taco fixings and there it is. So I'm really glad that you're telling us these kind of tips. I'm just going to take it to another level, a deeper level that's even less brain power.
Right. Well, and then with the plain hamburger, that will supplement, like if we're making spaghetti, and my kids love meat sauce spaghetti. So I'm, doing the spaghetti sauce, and then I just put a pound of the hamburger in, and that satisfies them to have the meat sauce, but I'm not taking an extra pan to have to cook the hamburger again. So then I'm just cooking the noodles and heating up the sauce instead of having another pan, an extra time. So those I feel like are two super easy meals that are a staple for sure around the Kelm house and that everyone loves, which makes it even better.
Yes.
So then this is one of my other geek out things, right? Okay. Rebecca, is so for breakfast, okay? So freezer meals don't just have to be for dinners, right? So for breakfast meals, what we do is when I make waffles or pancakes, I don't make just enough for what is going to be for that meal. I actually make the whole entire box. Yeah. So then when I'm done, then I'm actually freezing them in gallon-sized Ziploc bags. So waffles fit 4 waffles on a layer, and I can fit them 3 layers high in one Ziploc bag. And then same with pancakes. Usually you can maybe get 4 layers on a pancake sometimes, depending on the size you like your pancakes. But then my kids, instead of, feeling like if they're in a rush, they have to have a bowl of cereal instead of eggs or whatever, they can take the waffles, throw them in the toaster, and eat them on the run if we had to, right? Or the pancakes, we put them on a paper plate and put them in the microwave because they don't like them crunchy. So you put them in there for 30 seconds and they taste like fresh pancakes. And you're not buying the super expensive pre-made waffles or pre-made pancakes.
Yep. Gosh, so smart. Well, tell me too, when I saw in your picture, you do French toast way ahead too. You do like 4 loaves at a time.
Yes. So French toast, we do the same thing. I actually get that from Hy-Vee. So I buy Texas toast from Hy-Vee because it's the cheapest there. And we do French toast. I'll make a giant batch and do 4 loaves of French toast and then eat off of it that morning and then freeze the rest. So those they fit 4 on a layer, but only 2 layers high just because the Texas toast is so thick.
Yeah, that's so yummy too.
Right, and then the kids put that in the toaster as well. So super easy. They can do it on their own, and I at least know they're getting something that I controlled what is in there. And to take it to another level, I use pre-made box mix stuff for like the pancakes and the waffles. If you really wanted to, you can make your own recipe with it too.
Yeah, and you save money if you did. My grandma always made her own pancake and waffle mix. It's not that difficult, guys. It actually isn't.
Right. But for me, that's what I mean about the home cooked in quotation marks is it's not necessarily always from scratch, but you only can do what you can do, right? And so
it's also why I picked you because you are so approachable about it. Like, if you want to do this from scratch, go for it. But here's the version that I'm doing, and it works. But it's not like a end-all, be-all. Right.
Yeah. Everything can be modified to meet whatever needs of your diet or how you cook.
Okay, we have enough time for you to tell us one more. The rest of these recipes encouragers we will put on it'll either be on the show notes or the podcast. I'm not sure how that works with the new website encouragers. I hope you go there, but just stay tuned. You will be able to get access to all these recipes. Tell me about the stuffed manicotti.
Okay, that was the one I was going to pick too.
Oh, good. Okay.
So stuffed manicotti is I buy the noodles from Target. They're like the manicotti noodles, right? They come in a square box with the little trays all fancy, right?
Okay.
What I love about this recipe is you do not have to bake the noodles. Or you don't have to boil them before. So this is one that's super easy to quadruple, right? And it is super filling even for my teenagers, which I love, right?
Yes.
So I buy the cottage cheese in bulk. So then, I'm mixing it up and I actually put it in a Ziploc bag and then cut the tip off. So I mix all the filler ingredients inside of a Ziploc bag and just mash it all up. And then I cut the tip off and that's how I fill the unboiled manicotti noodles.
Okay.
And then line them in the trays. And I sprinkle the top with cheese too, the mozzarella cheese, just so then the foil doesn't stick to the spaghetti sauce. And usually the spaghetti sauce, when I make those big batches, I'll buy the big can of spaghetti sauce and then just doctor it up a little bit. But that one is super easy to quadruple, and it's super inexpensive because it's not a lot of high priced ingredients, especially if you can buy the cottage cheese in bulk.
Tell me what you mean by doctor it up.
Like, I'll just throw in like some more Italian seasoning, a little, that kind of, just sometimes they're a little bland. So I'll just throw in some extra Italian seasoning spice mix.
Oh, I like that idea. Oh, no, I didn't know. So I'm glad you told me. Okay. Oh my gosh,
and then we'll have French bread or garlic toast with it, and it's more than enough to fill, my starving boys that have tapeworms.
The other part of this too that I think you guys should note is that Jessica also told me when we were doing the booth that when she makes all these freezer meals for her family, she makes individual portions for her grandfather, which is so sweet to because I'm big on be multi-generational, take care of those around you. So she portions out little ones so that her grandfather can eat without having to, because what'd you say? He just won't eat. He'll just decide, forget it.
Right. Yes. That is right. So when I'm batching out stuff and if there's smaller portions that we can't make into a full meal for us, then I always have smaller pans. I always buy the bread loaf pans, and those are perfect one-person portion size pans that he can then put in the oven. And then I Sharpie the directions on the top for him. So it's super easy. That's all he has to do is cook it in the oven. And so I do that with waffles and pancakes for him too. So
I love it. And I know that each one of us can think of a family, an individual, an elderly that could probably benefit for the same method. Okay. Right. Oh my gosh, so many good. The other ones that you guys will be able to see on the website, and I will be personally reaching out to Jessica on our Encourager Facebook page and say, Jessica, they want more. So she'll be sharing some of those on our Facebook as well. There's stuffed manicotti, which we just covered, chicken or beef enchiladas, or stuffed shell noodle tacos. Also her French dips that we talked about with the freezing process, and
the sliders.
Oh, and the sliders. Yes. And I want you to share your Italian dunkers because those sounded super yummy.
Right. Okay,
I do really meaty afternoon snacks for our crew because they just get so hungry and I don't want them to consume a bunch of starch and not have anything with it. So I think that would be a great afternoon snack as well. Okay, encouragers, this has been so great. I can't wait to see you guys start posting some of your pictures of trying Jessica's method, and we'll get on her about writing an ebook so that we can download that as well. So thank you, encouragers, for tuning in. We'll make sure to follow up with Jessica and check out her company, JustSoBaby.com. Tell her we sent you. And until next time, encouragers, we got this.
Hey, encouragers! If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you've had the scene where you're crying because there's no way you can meet all the roles in your life, I've been there. I've so been there, but I'm not there anymore. And I know how you can get out of that slump and start executing on all the things that God has equipped you to do. You can pick up my book at equippedtoexecute.com, also on my website at shoparsd.com, and it's also available on Amazon. Thank you for tuning in, encouragers. Remember to subscribe so it's automatically on your phone, and please rate and review me. We got this, encouragers.